and gentlemen, my lovely, beautiful faces that I'm looking at here, I would love you guys with a robust applause. Let's welcome Patrick Okedinachi Utomi.
Do we ask Professor, sir? I asked Professor Peter. We didn't drop the mic for you too. Okay.
I also live on Akoka Street. So we are all great Akokites. And I even have a double portion. I married one. My thoughts will very much challenge institutional arrangements to encourage small and medium enterprise development. Now, by now it is cliche. Everywhere you go, you hear it, that economic growth depends more on small and medium scale enterprises than on the big multinational companies we often hear about. However, there is complementarity in this. Surely, SMEs can thrive when we have very successful big companies. But in the main, especially for the season in which we are, the season of Nigeria trying to reap what has come to be known as a demographic dividend. You know, many years ago, economists used to worry about population. They used to say that to grow the economy, one of the things you needed to do was essentially control birth and reduce the number of people so that there will be fewer people chasing the value that is out there and their quality of life will improve. Well, we have seen the results in many parts of Europe and in Japan, where they have an aging population and don't have enough young people to support the aging population. And so they're using visa lottery and all kinds of things to try and steal human beings from these parts of the world. And so in recent times, as we have watched China rising, as we have watched India rising, economists have begun to review their positions. And now we talk about the idea of a demographic dividend. That is, the countries that will win the future are the countries that have what we have, a youth bulge. But this youth bulge will not translate into the kind of economic prosperity that we desire and deserve if we do not educate that youth population well and keep them healthy. And so part of the challenge of now is educating and keeping healthy this youth bulge. If we are going to have a Nigeria rising, we're going to need institutional arrangements that will enable these young people who have entrepreneurial talent, who are motivated to essentially get the most out of this talent, be able to play effectively. In my work around entrepreneurship development, I've often referred to a remarkable piece of research done by two University of Chicago Graduate School of Business professors, Raghuram Rajan and Luigi Zingales. And they have put these thoughts down in a book titled Saving Capitalism from the Capitalists. Rajan and Zingales, and Rajan left the University of Chicago to become chief economist at the IMF and economic advisor to the Prime Minister of India later. In this book, essentially, look at the reason why the United States of America is more likely to renew itself and grow its economy than many other countries. And the essential conclusion is that institutional arrangements in the United States makes it easier for these young people to see opportunity, to access capital, and to create new wealth. And so, to encourage the growth of SMEs, we must look at how our institutional arrangements facilitate access to these new ideas and to new capital to make these ideas come alive. The truth of the matter, which is where the title of the book comes from, the title is Saving Capitalism from the Capitalists, is that the biggest enemies to capitalist advance are capitalists themselves, current dominant capitalists. Because capitalism moves forward through what the Austrian economist Joseph Schumpeter calls creative destruction. That is, creatively destroying that which is dominant today to replace it with higher value. Those who are dominant today, who produce the things that are used and they have made a lot of money from it, they are the ones who will become friends of the governor. They are the ones who will become friends of the president. Nigeria forms economic team. It will put them in economic team, which is somehow crazy, because you are asking people to set the environment in which they are players. But anyway, it happens in Nigeria. So, now these people, when they get together with these powerful people, will not be discussing what will help some small guy somewhere. They will be discussing what will keep down the small guy. Because it's natural, it's not because they are wicked, it's natural. And the thing that will lead to economic progress is that small guy upturning the big guy by creating something more valuable than what that big guy produces. So my favorite example when I talk about this subject is the way we communicate, we write. We used to use feather. We would dip it in the ink and write. Then the printing press came, revolution. Then personal communication. Somebody invented the typewriter. Fantastic forward movement. But how do you write a letter typewriter? You make a mistake, what do? You go and bring Tipex, and the thing will look very untidy. You are typing, boo boo. Your hand is paining you, boo boo. And then one small boy in one corner comes up with an idea that as you are typing, all you have to do is go back, you have corrected the thing. And Olympia, go to lunch with the Prime Minister. What do you think they will say about this funny thing coming that I just said? They say, this is the devil coming. It is going to cause problems in our country. And so capitalism does not make progress because of the dominant capitalists of now. Raghu Rajan and Luigi Zingales in that book argue that in America, because of a set of judgments from the US Supreme Court, for which they particularly give credit to a certain justice called Louis Brandeis, the American system allows for easier access for the small guy. And so you will have all kinds of funds that a young person who is just smart can access. The first measure of smartness, what school did he go to? How well did he perform? And I give you a personal example. When I was a graduate student in the US, my money did not arrive on time from Nigeria. And I needed to get a loan to bridge the season. I went to the local union. You know, you have most, in America, most universities have a credit union, the employees' credit union. So, you know, it's a bank, but it's called a credit union. So I went to the employees' credit union and I said I wanted to borrow some money because I was familiar with Nigerian banking. I went to ask my professors and all the people who I thought would be my security to see, look, I'm going to try and borrow $3,000 if you can please. They say, oh, no problem. So I get to the bank. I apply for this loan. I see the not even manager, whoever the person was, the loan officer. And I was waiting for security. And the guy says, can I sign this document allowing access to my academic records? I said, oh, why not? I signed it. And he came back and said, okay, your loan is approved. I said, I have security. Oh. The man said, what security? He says, what's that? I said, my professors have written letter that. He said, no. If somebody who has your academic record will run away for $3,000, then something is wrong with the academic record. And that was the basis of which I got that facility. The system has been designed to understand what really is important. And this is the point that Rajan and Zingali argue why America is more likely to renew itself economically than India and others. The ordinary people, Africa, Europe, more or less the same thing. So, but as the 20th century came to a close, the difference between the life of the average person in Europe and the average person in Africa was like night and day. That what happened was that in the 20th century, there had been a surge in productivity growth in Europe, and Africa had basically stayed flat. And at the heart of this surge in productivity, in my view, is the way that enough knowledge became available to ordinary people in Europe to organize enterprise. Small, medium-sized enterprises, creating value, and harnessing how that value is created for the development of the people, the quality of lives of those individuals. And so my challenge today to you, the challenge that I shared 12 years ago in reflecting on the NYSC scheme. 12 years ago, I suggested two different tracks, and this is really, I think, worthy of some reflection actually. One track around the same thing on how to make small enterprises in our country become better organized. I suggested that if the NYSC scheme were to be reviewed and the first 3 months were given to intense training of youth corps in business organization, and then these youth corps were released as entrepreneurship extension service agents onto the streets to go to the mechanics to educate them in how to organize their workshop so that they can have greater sustainability. Go to the bakers, go to the shopkeepers, organize their enterprises much better. Not only will those youth corps grow remarkably in the process, but the organization of small enterprise will be significantly transformed. I can tell you there was a factory in Isolo run by an Indian, textile mill. He had so much trouble in Nigeria, up and down, policy change. One day the man just created his equipment, just put it in a crate and moved it to Nairobi, Kenya. Today, that business is supplying Walmart 10,000 jeans a day from Kenya. Dear friends, distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the possibilities are enormous, but it will take you and I committing to building the institutions. We will take a passionate response from those who run such institutions like the leaders of this world, looking at what their colleagues have done in Malaysia to get us all where we're going. We can do it. You too can do what I've done. Thank you.